Welcome back. Panel is with us from their remote-ish locations. Yamiche Alcindor, White House correspondent for PBS NewsHour. Peter Alexander, White House correspondent for us here at NBC News. And Anna Palmer, senior Washington correspondent for Politico and co-author of Politico's Playbook. Well, Peter, I assumed I would have been starting with a tweet from the president this morning responding to President Obama. That hasn't happened yet, but let's play a little bit of President Obama not so subtly taking a dig at the pandemic response from national leadership.
More than anything, this pandemic has finally torn back the curtain on the idea that so many of the folks in charge know what they're doing. A lot of them aren't even pretending to be in charge. If the world's going to get better, it's going to be up to you.
Peter, I assume this becomes something that's a bit of an attention seeker for the president today?
Well, we've seen it over the course of the last several days from President Trump attacking his predecessor, Barack Obama, what he calls Obamagate. This weekend, he's at Camp David meeting with some of his conservative allies, a White House official telling me it's certain that their desire, so far fruitless, to try to show evidence that President Obama committed a crime. The president was asked that very question, President Trump, this week. The president couldn't identify what crime he's accusing President Obama of, but I'm told by this official that it's certain they'll be discussing that topic there. But what this really sort of underscores is the break in what was that sort of presidential tradition where there wasn't any criticism sort of back and forth. We've seen it. Last night you saw Barack Obama speaking at a commencement address to Americans. It's sort of one vision of leadership versus what we've seen from President Trump in recent days. They each offered one word, I guess, that they punctuated this week from President Trump, who's trying to knock out Joe Biden at the same time as he knocks on Barack Obama. He said, Obamagate. From Barack Obama, he said, vote, Chuck.
Yamiche Alcindor, look, former President Obama, he's careful with his words. That's a written speech. That's a vetted speech. He made this decision to engage. It is going to spark a political back and forth.
It is, but I think what we see now is President Obama really getting into general election territory and starting to gear up the might of the Obama name. He is ready for this fight. He was at first caught really on a private call talking to staffers, and he was trying to get them excited about Joe Biden, saying that President Trump's response to the coronavirus was a chaotic disaster. That was, of course, President Obama's direct word. So what you see there is President Obama coming to the defense of his vice president and coming to his own defense without actually directly talking about this conspiracy theory that President Trump is now talking about, which is whether or not President Obama broke some sort of law. I think what you see, though, this week is President Trump really leaning in on his 2016 instincts. He's back where he was in 2016, which is that he's going on the offensive with Obama. He's also, in some ways, leaning and not listening to the scientists saying, hey, you really need to slow down and be cautious about reopening. This week, he said, I think it was the line of the week, vaccine or no vaccine, we're back. He could have said tests or no tests, we're back. He could have said scientists or no scientists, we're back. The clear sign there is that we're back in his mind.
Anna Palmer, I want to play, and speaking of the president, he continues to believe that if we over-focus on the health issues, we are going to do worse economic damage. Take a listen to how he portrayed the death toll earlier this week.
I've lost friends. Many of us have lost friends. We read about that and we see that, and that's what the news covers. But that's a very small percentage. It's a very, very small percentage. I say it all the time. It's a tiny percentage. The vast majority, many people don't even know they have it.
Anna Palmer, among congressional Republicans, how much do they sort of lean toward that view of sort of this balance between health security and economic security?
I think there's the issue of this president has never been very good with empathy. And certainly as a country, when that death toll is rising, almost 90,000, and clearly it looks like there's going to be tens of thousands more deaths on the horizon, that Republicans are concerned. But they have not broken with this president on this issue or on a few others. I do think, to your point earlier about Obamagate and how the president is really trying to rally his troops and making this a campaign issue, you have seen a little bit of space between where congressional Republicans are, where Mitch McConnell is, where even his allies like Senator Lindsey Graham saying, you know, you should be careful what you wish for if you really want me to bring former President Barack Obama up to the Hill to actually testify.
Anna Palmer, I want to stick with Congress here for a second. Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, seemed to make it clear this week that he wants to see Congress to act. And I'm curious, what mattered more to Mitch McConnell, Jay Powell's comments or Nancy Pelosi's ability to pass her $3 trillion package?
I mean, Congress is nowhere on a package. The Republicans and Democrats haven't even started talking. If you speak to Republicans behind the scenes, they are projecting another bill won't even be really seriously looked at for several weeks, and on a more aggressive timeline, potentially try to pass it before the July 4th recess. But really right now, you're not seeing Mitch McConnell having any sense of urgency to take up a package, whether or not Jay Powell is urging them to say we need more action soon.
Peter Alexander, I want to read for you here very quickly a Mitt Romney tweet about the late night announcement on Friday night that the president planned to fire another Inspector General, Steve Linick, this one at the State Department. Said Mitt Romney, the firings of multiple inspectors general is unprecedented. Doing so without good cause chills the independence essential to their purpose. It is a threat to accountable democracy and a fissure in the constitutional balance of power. What I found interesting about this story is that, Peter, the White House went on the record to say it wasn't the president that made this decision after it was requested by Secretary of State Mike Pompeo.
Yeah, Chuck, you're exactly
what is that
right.
About?
It's not just Mitt Romney, by the way. Chuck Grassley among those also critical of this decision. The third time in 6 weeks on a Friday night that the president has ousted one of the independent watchdogs, these inspector generals here. But it was striking that they would say Pompeo recommended this and President Trump followed suit there, given the fact that there's reporting from Democratic aides that Pompeo is being investigated by the State Department Inspector General for basically having a political appointee do some tests on his behalf. This was odd. I asked a White House official, and they said, this is not the way I would have put it. Back to you, Chuck.
Very interesting there, Peter Alexander. All right. When we come back, how the economic fallout of COVID-19 can also spread like a virus. But as we go to break, it is graduation season, virtual graduation season, that is. And we have highlights from a graduation week like no other.
What will your essential service be? What really matters to you?
You had to be good Americans. Good Americans who made the sacrifices that have saved lives.
Having you come at this moment to help America move through this very difficult time is really extraordinary.
Leave behind all the old ways of thinking that divide us. Sexism, racial prejudice, status, greed, and set the world on a different path.
Hello from Washington, I'm Chuck Todd, and thanks for checking out the Meet the Press channel on YouTube. Click on the button down here to subscribe and click over here to watch the latest interviews, highlights, and other digital exclusives.